Man, what a beautiful day in the neighborhood. But girls, I have no idea what we're doing today.
Well, we're going to be talking about water because if you think about it, water is so important to us. It really is our source of life. There's a lot of times, or most of the times really, where we need water in us. There's times where we want water on us, but there's also times where we don't want anything to do with water and we want to be protected from it, and that's where our houses come into play. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to water.
So today's show is all about water management as it relates to our bodies and our homes.
Okay, great. Guys, great job, but I'm going to button this up right here. I love power tools.
Okay.
JR's got a
What are we doing?
no.
Finally get to play around with this.
See, perfect.
There we go.
Okay.
Look at that.
Now tell me what this has to do with our show, though, Luke.
We built this about 4 months ago, and the whole reason we built it is because we wanted to show kind of what peeled back layering of our roof system does, but we also wanted to test how do our products withstand some of the elements that are out there.
Okay, now you told me to bring this ice scraper. I have no clue why it's 80 degrees and you want this.
Well, it may be 80 degrees, Tony, and obviously we're not going to have ice on a day like today, but what we do want to talk about is ice and water shield. Now, a lot of homes on the market may not have ice and water shield, but with all of our homes nowadays, we're putting ice and water shield to help protect it as an underlayment underneath those shingles. So what can happen sometimes during the winter is obviously you've got a conditioned space on the inside of the house, but then during those cold temperatures, correct, those cold temperatures can cause that snow to melt, which then causes ice. Now that ice can work its way underneath those shingles. So with a 3-foot roll of ice and water shield, we can help protect your OSB on the roof to help prevent that water from melting and getting inside your house.
So what you're saying is frozen water can do a lot of damage?
It can.
Well, this is pretty good, but we got to open the show, guys. So let's leave this here. Is this all set up for the next segment?
This is ready.
Let's meet and we're going to open the show up, all right?
Good
job.
Want to get this set up?
Yeah.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Well, guys, as we just saw, water is an amazing thing, and it's also a very powerful thing. You know, over the course of time, it has created such places as the Grand Canyon. No water, no Grand Canyon. And then there's also the Alaskan glaciers. Have you ever seen the glaciers? You haven't lived till you've seen those beautiful glaciers. And then in northern Indiana, we are blessed. You know, we have more than 500 lakes in northern Indiana. Guess what's in them? Water.
Yeah, and Lonnie, water can be very destructive too, so we have to worry about our pipes eroding. We also have to worry about ground erosion on all of our construction sites and then moving forward for that homeowner. So we're going to talk about how this rod protects the home from that erosion.
Wow.
But water can make a very beautiful thing, just like granite. This is how water cuts our granite for your homes every single day. It is powerful enough to do something like that. How crazy.
And the power of moving water, like we spoke of with rivers and such, allows for hydroelectricity, which the dams produce, but it can also give us transportation. And actually in Fort Wayne, we used that kind of water transportation for trade for many years here in our area. And of course, it's great for fishing with people like Lonnie.
Right.
But that water can also cause trouble in our homes because you can see those rivers can overflow and cause flooding in our homes as well.
You know, guys, speaking of water, you got to talk about frozen water. Frozen water created glaciers. It can move mountains. It can move rock. By the way, it can even move our concrete, and we have to be very, very careful of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned concrete. If we put together a pile of cement, gravel, and sand, it doesn't do anything. But as soon as we add water to it, it hardens up and produces that concrete that literally is the foundation we build our houses on.
So that's the water.
Now guys, we've talked about a lot of the things we can see when it comes to water, and we talked about some of the destructive properties, but I think the thing that's fascinating about water is the stuff you can't see, like water vapor. Now water vapor in the air or just high humidity levels mixed in the right conditions can actually cause mold and mildew. Now the stuff around us in the atmosphere, the vapor barrier in the air, if all of that were to fall from the sky, it would only cover the earth in about 1 inch of water. That's a fascinating fact too.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Let's bring it back down a little bit. We have a lot of people who talk to Granite Ridge builders about wanting to build in the country. Well, if you're looking at building in the country, that means you're looking into a well. And there's a lot of water management that goes with those wells. 15% of the people in the United States are on well and have well water, and that's almost 100% of the people who live in the country.
Tony, I've got some good stats on water too. Of all of the water supply on the earth, 97% of it is salt water. So we've only got 3% that's actually fresh water. And when you talk about that 3%, 2 of it's wrapped up in polar ice caps and glaciers that we can't even access. But we are so lucky based on our geography and where we live. Of that 1% of fresh water, 21% is in our backyards in the Great Lakes. So we're really lucky to have access to it. And I think the scariest stat, 1.1 billion people don't have access to fresh water. That is something we take for granted every single day.
Yeah. I do. I take for granted how much water I use. Do you know the average person uses about 100 gallons of water every single day? Wow. So 24 gallons just flushing your toilet, 20 gallons taking an average shower, 19 gallons using your faucets, and then just think about your washing machine and your dishwasher and your drinking water.
Wow. Well, water's a beautiful thing. And a good example of it's in our backyard. Guys, take a look at that
Can be pretty.
fountain.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
That's where it produces. Beautiful.
So look at that. See how important it is with this Indiana weather? I mean, we can get 50-mile-an-hour winds just like that there, and it's so important to be able to protect our house from that.
Yeah, you talked in the beginning, sometimes we want water, sometimes we don't. This is one example of we're trying to shed water and keep these walls protected. So Kayla, let's start with the outer edge of the wall, work our way in and show how we protect this wall from moisture.
Yeah, so typically what you're gonna see first on the outside is gonna be siding. And the siding manufacturers have done a great job. Obviously, they know it's very important with their product to protect the house from the water. But the siding manufacturers have weep holes underneath their siding because they know that the rain can still get behind their siding product itself. So they wanna still be able to shed that water away, and they're gonna let that siding have some relief, and that water can leave the siding area, as well as brick. It's the same thing with the brick. You're gonna have weep holes to get that water away from the house.
So Kayla, once we get back behind that layer of siding, we've got this house wrap. Now it's protecting this OSB, which does not do well when water hits it. So this house wrap is professionally engineered to shed this water down. Installation is key to make sure that we get this water running down and away from the house, right?
Absolutely. You don't want to install this upside down or inside out or anything like that, because the way to design is to shed the water away from the house. And the interesting thing about this is, we want to keep the water away, but it has to be breathable, which kind of seems like an oxymoron, but you also don't want to trap the moisture inside the house, because if moisture would get behind there and it can't have any relief to come out, this also has to be a breathable product. So they've done an amazing job making sure that this works in all elements.
Absolutely. And then again, we talked about installation on the wall, but installation around windows is really key too. They want to make sure that they overlap that so that the water sheds down, and then they're going to tape around that window as well. Again, shedding water all the way down, relieving underneath that bottom layer of siding, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it's very important that all of our tradespeople have proper training on how to install these products, because doing it the wrong way, you could be in a world of hurt when it comes to this water management. But we have gone through that training, and they do an amazing job to make sure that this is the proper way to do everything.
Well, when it comes to your home, I would say one of the top 10 most important things in your home is the roof and the roof system. And we have a great example of it here. We built this about 3 months ago, and we've had it outside as an example to see how it weathers over time.
That's right. And we're going to talk a little bit about those products today, aren't we, Tony?
We are. There's a lot of things that are going on with this roof system that we have here. And it all starts with the OSB that we have. Now, because we like to test a lot of things and see a lot of different things, there's an industry standard that they use a 7/16. Well, as you can see here, that's got a lot of give to it. Now, try it over here with a 1/2 inch, which is what we do. See how sturdy that is? Then from the OSB, we have this water protection, don't we?
That's right, and it's an ice and water shield, and as you can see, it's basically a peel and stick, and like I said earlier, that comes in 3-foot rolls, so we start at the edge of the roof and take it all the way up for an additional layer of protection.
Now, what we do at Granite Ridge Builders is this synthetic roofing underlayment, and you'll see here it's red. Now, you don't see this very long, so when we're building your home, it's just a matter of a couple of days before this will be covered up with shingles.
Now, with it being such a beautiful day, obviously we need to show the viewers how resistant this is to water. So I've got a little bit of rain right here, so we're going to show everybody how this really works. All right. Whoa! All right. I'm going to let you guys continue. I'm going to start on this other roof.
I'm glad I moved.
Thanks, Tyler.
One great thing about this, I know that our roofers especially like it because it's got a little bit of grip, so when they're up there, they have a little bit more extra support because of the grip on this when they're walking around.
This is a fantastic material. If we just peel this back a little bit, you can get a close-up of how this protects this OSB. This has been outside for about 3 to 4 months now, and you can see the extreme protection this underlayment provides.
Right. Now with our OSB, we also use H-clips, so you can't see it here, but that's how we clip this together, and it allows some movement. So when we're expanding or contracting, you can have some movement here. Now this is kind of a good example too. Here you can see we've had these shingles on here for 3 months. You can see it's still red under here, so a good way to see how it's holding up. Now our last layer of protection when it comes to your roof is the shingle, and this is what you see and you probably know more about. Now the industry standard is a 3-tab, what we have here, and like we said, this has been on 3 months, and you can see we can still lift it. Now what we use here at Granite Ridge Builders is this shingle right here.
You're going to watch this right here. You can see how the heat and everything is laid down on this. So now we have a nice tight seal to go through here. And let's say we do get just a little water to seep through the shingles. That's why we have the underlayment. The underlayment goes from the top all the way to the bottom, and that water will just shed all the way off of your roof.
And this has a limited lifetime warranty. Now the final piece to this is our gutters and our downspout. So all of the water is going to shed down here to our gutter and then down through the downspout.
And that's why it was especially important when you're looking at those gutters and downspouts, if you have the basement, to make sure that you tile that water away from the house so that you keep it away from that concrete wall on your basement.
Wow, you know,
I think the mist has stopped, Lonnie.
you think?
Yeah.
You know, Elizabeth, when it comes to public enemy number one, at least from a builder's perspective, the rain, it comes to us in a lot of different forms here in northern Indiana.
Yes, water is public enemy number one.
It sure is. I mean, we're talking about deluge, which is like a downpour. We're talking about maybe a mist or a sprinkle.
Or a
showers.
shower.
Right,
Yes.
it comes in a lot of different forms, and so we got to talk about it and think about it.
And when it comes to your house, you often take water for granted when it rains. So if you live in a 2,000 square foot house, for example, and it rains just 1 inch, so that's not a lot of rain, that produces about 1,200 gallons of water. So 1,200 gallons are falling onto your home, and we have to figure out how to get that water away from
It's
your
also
house.
falling onto the yard, so we have a lot of considerations there. And one of the things that we do, by the way, 1 inch of rain equals about 10 inches of snow in the wintertime. Got to deal with that as well. But when it comes to the rain, it's most of it that we're concerned about comes to the roof.
Yes.
It moves to these gutters. We use a 5-inch or a 6-inch gutter depending on the size of the home. We're going to take that into consideration. And it moves from the gutters. By the way, we coordinate those gutters with the color of the siding. A lot of color
You're
options.
correct.
And then we move them to the downspouts.
You're correct. And if we had one builder's tip for you today when it comes to your downspouts, because there is so much water, especially when you're on a basement, when you get into your home and you have your landscaper come out, we recommend that you have those tiled in. So they're going to hook a drain tile up to that downspout and take it away from the home. So that's another way to protect yourself and your home from water.
Of course, you don't want to put it on the neighbor, but the good rule of thumb is get the water away from your home. Wow, Luke, what a beautiful day to look at. Kind of a unique house in our area, what we call a walkout basement home.
Yeah, and as you can see, I mean, we literally just walked out of the basement, and you said it's unique, but we got an interesting development coming up that we're going to be doing a lot more of these walkouts.
We do. Out on the old Cedar Creek golf court, Tollymore is an area where we've got all kinds of lots with what we call relief, or the opportunity to put a walkout, just like you see here.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to break ground on some of those houses, but we're talking about water management today, and a walkout or basement or slab, all of those have certain things we have to keep in mind when it comes to rainwater or even groundwater. This one, we do have a retaining wall behind me.
Right, that's a big consideration. You're right.
Yeah.
And
the whole purpose of the retaining wall, obviously we're in an area where we have a lot of clay. If we were to dig this basement and we were never to get any rain, we wouldn't have to put that retaining wall there because the clay would just hold its form. But every time it rains, it erodes out like we've talked about. So we have to put that retaining wall to hold back that dirt as the rain wants to wash it out.
And so sometimes on the job, we kind of have to work it out. Like this is probably about a 7 or 8 foot retaining wall. Sometimes they got to be pushed out a little bit further. And we always put them under a footer, right?
Correct.
And why is that?
Yeah, well, there's moisture in our ground. Water is in our ground, and in our area, the frost level will drive down, and they factor in no more than 36 inches. So there's a 36-inch deep footer from where our feet are going down to support that retaining wall.
Another interesting thing about walkout basements is we have to maintain a certain flood protection grade, as we call it, right?
Correct. So in this lot here, we have a pond, and that pond's, somebody smarter than us decided that in 500 years, this is the worst rain we're going to get. And this elevation of our house has to be 2 foot above that 500-year floodplain grade. So we're pretty safe when it comes to rain management from flooding.
So when Fort Wayne floods, we might have a problem. Otherwise, we're going to be good to go, I think. Right.
We have to be concerned about, like you and Elizabeth talked about, rainwater or even groundwater, water that's already in the ground as we open up that hole. And we do that by typically perimeter tiles and a sump pump. And that works pretty well, but a walkout provides us a better opportunity with that.
So we've got this tile that goes around the foundation of the home, and instead of bringing it to the sump pump, our first direction would be away from the house, like to the pond or the ditch, whatever, because we've got a walkout opportunity to do that.
Right, so we call that a natural drain. So that water that collects around the house will just find its way to those tiles and out towards the pond, never entering the inside of the house.
And then at Granite Ridge, we always, or typically would set a sump pump pit as kind of a backup. If a critter or something would happen to your natural drain, you've got another backup, right?
Correct. And whether it be a walkout or a basement or a slab, it is crucial, the elevation or the dirt around the house, to have positive fall away from that, or negative fall, excuse me. So it is going to fall roughly about 6 inches within the first 10 foot away from the house, regardless if it's basement or a slab.
Another thing we do, and it's maybe hard to visualize, we'll maybe have some B-roll here, but is doing this relief valve that we do under slab areas of home or under a slab.
Right.
Explain that.
Yeah, most people think, well, yeah, it's a slab, so I don't have to be worried about water. Well, we do several things to manage the water. Well, one of the things, like you mentioned, is we put a 4-inch tile through the footer. So any water that may find its way through the ground or in the rain, find its way up underneath that foundation, has a relief point. So that's going to find that 4-inch tile, and it's going to run outside of the footprint of the house. But then we also do a couple other things. We put a 6 mil visqueen across the entire footprint before we pour our concrete. So that way any moisture that wants to, any vapor, any of that vapor wants to push through, it's going to find that visqueen and not come into the inside of the house.
And so what you're telling me is whether it's a slab or a walkout, we have to consider, as we call it, public enemy number one, water management on the home, in the home, around the home.
Yeah, and getting that elevation set right from the beginning is crucial, because you'll be fighting it all the way through if you don't. If you get it too low or even too high is a bad problem sometimes. But we spend a lot of time up front making sure we get the laser out here and we shoot things and make sure that this house is going to be the way it is. Just like with this one, we did a great job with the retaining wall, giving us this beautiful view out back.
And I want to say one more time, I'm really excited about these walkout basements for a lot of reasons. And one of the big reasons is cost. Typically your basement, even the finished basement's about 60 to 70% of the cost upstairs. So a lot of bang for the buck. Got to come and see Granite Ridge Builders about your walkout basement in your brand new home.
Filtration plant does a really great job in water management for our homes, but there are other ways to even improve that process from a home standpoint, and there are a lot of products and things that we do here. So this is a very typical kitchen setup. When you get your new home, you might have 2 faucets here, and a lot of people are like, well, what do I have both of those for? If you are looking at getting a water softener, your water softener would be hooked up to most of the faucets around your house except for one here, where this is your drinking water. This could be your tap water, well water, something that's not softened, or you could eventually get a reverse osmosis system set up for this as well. Now we get the question a lot, what's the difference between a water softener, a reverse osmosis? What do I need any of these things for? And like Aziz said, we have award-winning water here, but some people really do like very soft water, and so they want to get a softener for that. What a softener helps with is, the best way to think about it is, a softener is for any water that goes on you. So that's going to be any of your faucets here, your dishwasher, your washing machine, your showers, all of that is what softened water for. Reverse osmosis is for any water that goes in you. Very important to know the difference there, and a lot of people do reverse osmosis either at your kitchen sink, maybe your refrigerator, because a lot of people get drinking water from the refrigerator, or even sometimes a master bathroom. And a lot of people in subdivisions in Fort Wayne will say, well, I don't really need any of those systems because we have great water. The best tip I can give you is to at least plumb for anything in the future, because if someone's buying your home and they want that kind of setup, it is so much better now for about $250 to set up for future than to think about adding any of these items later on.
And if someone wants to do a reverse osmosis, what does that usually cost?
So reverse osmosis systems usually start around $1,000, and there's obviously systems that can go upwards in price from there. And water softeners, about that same, maybe $1,200, $1,300 is a great starting point up. And they even, we have a great partner at Rab Water, and they even rent out systems if you want to try them or do different things on that kind of basis. So really great partners in the water management when it comes to any of your drinking water throughout the house.
So water management not only on the outside, but also on the inside to pure water.
Cheers.
Okay, Tyler, we're talking all about water, and we have a few things that we want to go over that you could call them tips, or we'll call them stud tips. How's that? When it comes to water, and one of the things we want to talk about is leaks.
Yes, we've talked about water and how it's public enemy number one in your home. And a lot of times if you're ever going to have a leak, it's going to scream emergency. So a lot of times we get questions on, if I have a water leak, how do I turn it off? And the good thing about building your home with Granite Ridge is we have connection points in 3 different areas for you to turn water off in the event that you have a leak. So let's say here in the kitchen, you happen to have a leak at the faucet. You've got your hot and water connections underneath the sink, and there's a valve that you can twist to turn the water off there. The other connection that you can turn the water off at is at the ManaBlock system. And our ManaBlock system is a lot like an electrical panel. You have individual connections for each room in your home, and they're labeled. So if you want to turn the water off to a specific spot, whether it be your laundry room, your master bedroom, in a bathroom, you can do that versus having to turn off water to the whole house. Now with using PEX lines, we're able to run different water connections that allow us to do that. A lot of times homes that were built, maybe 20, 30 years ago, a lot of people used copper, and the only way to turn water off in the house was to turn it off everywhere. Now, I always recommend that as just a good safety tip, because there's a valve in the garage where we bring water in from the street. Simply pulling up on a lever, that can kill water to the whole house until you're able to pinpoint where that water leak is coming from.
Yeah, and some people may not even realize that there are some things that are considered leaks, like a running toilet. Right? That's a leak. That water's just leaking right down the drain, and you're never going to recover that. A couple quick stats. If there's a leak or drop out of this sink for every 1 second, at the end of the year, that's going to equate to 3,000 gallons.
And that's a lot, especially when we talked about earlier that our average homeowners are using about 100 gallons a day. So that can add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it really can.
Now I see you also have some rods here, Luke, on the counter. Let's share what these are.
Yeah, these are extremely important. Most people don't even realize they have them in their home. So every one of our water heaters comes with this rod. It sticks down from the top down into the water heater. We've talked about how corrosive water can be, and the water heater is one of those areas where it is going to eat at the lining of that water heater if you're not careful. So this rod's whole purpose is purely sacrificial. We want those corrosive minerals to attack this rod rather than the water heater itself. So if you're not watching this and this rod corrodes all the way away, the next thing that's going to attack is the walls of your water heater. This will potentially increase the life of your water heater twofold used correctly, but you have to monitor it and you have to change it out every so often. And how often that might be depends on how corrosive your water can be.
Well, Luke, another stud tip and an advantage of building with us is that you have a team of individuals to help show you how to use and operate all of these things. You have decorators, you have salesmen, you have draftsmen, you have project managers, the people that deal with you in the field. And before we turn over the keys to our homeowners, we show everyone how to operate your home. So whether it be a leak or changing out the anode rod on a water heater, we also give the contact information for all of our valued trade partners, so that way you're not left in the dark if you have questions about leaks or having to operate your new home.
Whew, it is humid in here.
It is, but the nice thing about all this humidity is I can write some graffiti on this window.
Now, Tyler, we've talked a lot about water, and so far up to this point, we've talked about water that you can physically see. Humidity is one of those things that affects the houses probably more so than even rainwater, because it's constantly present, but we don't get to see it, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
That's right, and being out of sight, out of mind, as you can see, we opened up that pocket door, and I'm sure our viewers at home could immediately see all that steam coming at them. And those are the type of things people don't think about when it comes to moisture. Taking hot showers. Maybe even having a family of 4 or 5, you're introducing moisture into the air simply from breathing.
Yep.
I always tell homeowners too, if they like to cook a lot of pasta, boiling water, all of these are things that introduce moisture into the air.
Yeah, and we do several things it's standard in our homes that help, fight that humidity or that moisture. And one of them is when you're taking a shower, our bath fans. And it's recommended that 20 minutes after you are done taking a shower, you run that bath fan to exhaust all that humid air out of the space.
Absolutely. And another thing, in addition to the bath fan in bathrooms, is we do a mold and mildew resistant drywall. So during construction, you may see that a drywall color is different in certain areas of the home as opposed to the rest of the house. And you're going to talk a little bit about some of the other areas we put it.
Yeah, and we also put it underneath the stairs of the basement because that's an area that just seems to be running high in humidity. So we do that with the drywall, but then we also do a fresh air intake. And that fresh air intake just exchanges the entire air of the house out every 24 hours, which definitely helps lower that humidity.
Exactly. And a fresh air intake, I've always told homeowners, is kind of like the trachea for the house. Because with energy codes being so tight nowadays, we're building a tighter envelope of the home, but we still need it to breathe. So like you said, that's letting air come in and out. And another Granite Ridge difference that we do during the construction process of your home is we like to run a dehumidifier in the house for the duration of construction. Because during the process of a build, your home can actually hold up to an Olympic-sized swimming pool of water. That amount of moisture and vapor in the air, that's why we run those dehumidifiers to help pull all that out.
Yeah, now we talked about you don't really see humidity in your air, so we recommend that everybody gets a hydrometer, and the ideal percentage, and it can range depending on the time of the year, but probably 35% to about 50-55% is ideal. Anything lower than that, you're going to start risking, so that'd be like when you walk around and you shock somebody, that's too dry in your house. You're going to run into bacteria, viruses. If it's too humid, that's when you start getting the mold and dust mites. If you don't know what dust mites are, they're pretty scary looking things. So we monitor how much that humidity is playing into the effect of our new home, and it's a huge advantage when you build with Granite Ridge. But I can't stand another minute in this hot shower. We need to get out of here. You're starting to stink.
Well, guys, this has been a fun show today, and I've learned more about water than I ever thought I could ever know, and honestly, it's made me a little thirsty.
Me too.
Well, we're fortunate that we do have the Fort Wayne filtration plant that takes care of our water here today. It's award-winning, and it even comes right out of our spigot right up there.
I'm ready for it.
We really are lucky with the water that we do have and the good, clean drinking water that we have here, because so many people around the world do not. And so it's an amazing place to be able to live and say how clean the water is.
And it's an amazing place to live because of the memories that we have because of the water around us with all the lakes and the rivers, and even if it's just neighborhood kids playing on a slip and slide in the middle of a subdivision, you know, we have amazing memories with water.
Now, we talked about at the beginning of the show that water is literally the source of life, but Tyler, when we're building these homes, as you can see, we consider it public enemy number one.
That's true.
Let's just go real quick again, all the things we have to take into consideration when we're building a house. First, you got groundwater.
Yep, then we've got rainwater.
Yep, humidity and vapor inside the home.
Yep, we've got well water or public water coming into the house.
Yeah, so that water quality is massively important, like they said.
Yeah, and with water comes all the products that we're using on the house to help prevent that water from coming in. So whether it's the house wrap for our exterior sheathing, the ice and water shield, the underlayment for the roof shingles.
Yeah, it's endless.
Well, here in Indiana, we have lots of farms, and I appreciate water because of the crops. They yield our corn and produce all of our fruits and vegetables, so I'm especially thankful for that.
And you know, it can be so pretty, the serene lake where there's a little breeze coming through, or the fountain that we have in the background. Would you close for us?
Absolutely. As always, guys, we want to thank you for spending part of your day with us. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please just pick up the phone, give us a call, visit the website below. Even better yet, come in any one of our front doors and we can talk about how to properly manage the water for your new custom home.
I don't know about you, I'm going to sit here and watch this fountain.
I'm going to go get that drink.
Seriously.
You jump in? Yeah, let's go. The loser goes.
All right.